Welcome to Module 5, Choose Your Cycle. Here we are in the section Choose Your Cycle. Conflict Guru understands that certain cycles are put into motion by our mindset and what we do. Knowing this helps you choose the action and perspectives that will support the cycle you most want. There are really only two cycles, one that's regressive and one that's progressive. I'm sure you've heard of the downward spiral. The regressive cycle is that. On the other hand, the progressive cycle is the opposite, generating positive forward momentum. I'm sure most of us want to have wonderful relationships and get the very best results possible, yet we don't always know how to put this progressive cycle in motion to strengthen our relationship and the results we want. In this section, we will explore these two cycles, identify what puts them in motion, and give you the choice that will help you shift and stay in the progressive cycle. A conflict guru uses curiosity to shift into and stay in the progressive cycle. This is a visual depiction of the two cycles I was just telling you about and what happens to you during your interactions as each of these cycles play out. It also shows you what initiates each of these cycles for you to consider as we go through this module. The entry points are either reptilian reactions or conscious curiosity. I'll explain what these are and how the cycles unfold in more detail later. First, I'd like to show you a team doing an exercise called the ancient art of pushing hands. This exercise demonstrates what people's natural tendency is when others push on them physically. So we're going to do the ancient art of pushing hands, and we're going to partner up. We're going to stand up and partner up, but before we do that, Tommy, would you stand up and stand next to me? When we get together, we're going to put our left hand on the other person's shoulder. So we're that far apart, then put our hands down, and then touch our hands. And that's how we're going to get before, and then choose who's A and who's B. Okay? So get together, get that distance apart, put your hands together, determine who's A and who's B.
I'm B.
Okay. Yeah. Appropriate.
Okay, everyone know who A and B, and when I say go, B is going to push on A. Ready, go! Start pushing! Keep pushing! Push! Keep pushing! Push! Oh, okay, stop.
I'm like, are we supposed to resist?
I'm about to say, I was like, ugh. Unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected, and we just want to see what your natural reaction was. So, how many of you pushed back?
The beginning.
A little.
Okay, how many of you just stood your ground?
Yeah.
How many of you gave in? Okay, so that's the typical fight, flight, or flight. You fight, you push back, flight, you give in, or fight, flight, and freeze. Freeze is you just hold your ground. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to move. So that's the typical reptilian reactions. So my question is, you did this physically. What about if people push on your idea? Like say, that's a stupid idea. You push back?
No. I'll mentally shut down.
Shut down. So you kind of disconnect. So you're in the flight mode. You're not saying anything, you just shut down. How about emotionally? You know, do we push back if someone gets emotional with us?
I mean, it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Depends upon the situation, how comfortable you feel with the person. So you'll either push back, you'll give in, or you just freeze. You don't do anything. And that's our typical reaction. As you watched others pushing hands, what was your gut reaction? Take a moment to answer these questions in your workbook, considering how you would have reacted during the exercise. Then contemplate what you're currently doing when others challenge your ideas, when others get emotional with you. If you choose to push back and fight for your way or choose to get defensive or disengage, Does it ultimately work for you and the other person? How do others respond to you when you push on them? Does how you respond vary based on the situation? Maybe you freeze at work, but don't hesitate to push back at home with your significant other. By answering these questions, it will raise your awareness about what your natural tendency is so you can self-monitor differently in the future as you learn a new way to respond later in this module. The goal right now is to raise your awareness from being unconsciously incompetent to consciously incompetent to consciously competent, as I mentioned at the beginning of the course. To further explore the reptilian reactions of fight, flight, or freeze, I've created this continuum of responses to show the spectrum of reactions people have and how it might show up in your everyday life. I find it interesting that the range of reactions people have shared with me over the years. When shown a picture like this here of people combatively butting heads across the table, presumably at a meeting, some people will say that it's exaggerated, that people just don't act that way in business settings. Unfortunately, about half the room will disagree and offer plenty of examples of their coworkers' bad behavior. One person said, "I've been stabbed in the back so many times my back looks like Swiss cheese." I would say that in a work environment, it is more common for people to shut down and disengage. This is the classic flight response or freeze response. Just put your head down and do your work and stay out of other people's business. The problem with this is that if we avoid conflict and fear the ramifications of fear of speaking up, any hope of actually accomplishing something significantly together is doomed. You'll accomplish something, but is it really as good as it could have been had the relationship not been so challenged? In the end, conflict spun up by fight, flight, or freeze reactions ultimately drive us to self-protect or to protect ourselves from more of what we've just experienced. We can see this in bullying. When others make fun of us, it's a natural reaction to go inward to self-protect, to shield ourselves from the hurt and pain instigated by others. Other actions may not be as harsh, but can be equally harmful, like when someone checks out on you while you're sitting across the table from them. They're absorbed by something fascinating on their smartphone, all the while you were really looking forward to spending time with them and sharing some valuable lesson you just learned. What are you going to do in return to self-protect? Maybe lash out and call them an inconsiderate jerk? Or maybe just vow never to accept another meeting from them again. So let me use another term to define reptilian reactions: violent communication. Violent communication is when you or others use reptilian reactions in an attempt to get your needs met, creating disconnection with others and the need to self-protect. It may sound strange, but the reason people use reptilian reactions is they are trying to meet their needs, whether consciously or unconsciously. By trying to get your own needs met this way, you are actually making it harder for you to meet your needs because you're creating a huge disconnection from those that can actually help you get your needs met. That's tragic because the disconnection that you just created has you going it alone. You're now familiar with the classic fight, flight, or freeze reactions. The conflict, whatever it is, has stopped your progress in its tracks, and without the connection with others, you've got a tough road ahead. In the moment, though, you're just caught up in your reptilian reactions and not focused on what you really are actually trying to do in the long run. At the most basic level, when faced with some form of reptilian reaction, you feel that something isn't working for you and you feel the need to self-protect because the interaction has turned violent. hopefully not in a physical manner, but in the form of communication that violates your basic needs for safety and respect, causing you to try and provide it for yourself. Whether you're receiving it or giving it, you're likely to get more of the same, a like for like in return. It goes both ways, but we all know you can't change others, and your response is the only one you can control. I'm reminded of what Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth makes the whole world blind and toothless. Let's break down the predictable steps of the regressive cycle. When you start with reptilian reactions of fight, flight, or freeze, in your interactions with others, you put in motion the conditions that create the cascade effect of the regressive cycle. When safety and respect are at risk, you experience, it doesn't work for me, and you need to self-protect. From there, you tend to play it safe and put in bare minimum effort, which leads to mediocre results and low morale. Going forward, you're stuck in the ditch because of the past difficulties and stalled out with respect to future challenges. I could give you hundreds of examples of this in action, but let me share just one. Last year, I was contacted by the CEO of a young company, and what I mean by young is that they had grown from 4 executives to 34 employees, had been in business for less than 5 years, and they were passionate about the work that they were providing to other companies. They really valued their independence and the money that they were making then. They were all under the age of 32, and an incident happened that threatened their very survival. 6 months earlier, the entire workforce rose up against the previous CEO who was acting like a dictator, making demands of others and refusing to listen to the other executives, berating and yelling at them for the work they were doing that didn't meet his expectations. This extreme violation of safety and respect showed up in each conference call and virtual meeting he participated in. Something had to be done to change the culture of this company, or the other founding executives realized there would be a mass exodus of employees and the company would not survive the brain drain. So they got together and forcibly removed the CEO from his position and from the company. This helped restore safety and respect within the company, and employees stayed. Yet there was one lingering problem. The previous CEO's brother was also on the executive team and had bad feelings and deep wounds that existed from having his brother expelled, threatening to destroy any hopes of the executive team working together as a unified team ever again. The event continued to plague their meetings, and fear surfaced frequently. Whenever a new problem arose, the brother would say, "So what, are you going to get rid of me too?" They were stuck in a ditch with past difficulties and stalled out with future challenges unless they could move past what happened and create a new future for themselves. They were stuck in the regressive cycle and needed to pull themselves out and their company, and they just didn't know how. I like to think of the regressive cycle as a tendency to feel, react, and then think. The ineffective equivalent to this in firing a weapon is ready, shoot, aim. This is what happened in this company. They felt the pain, they reacted to it, and now they're trying to figure out how they could regroup and move past the event that happened 6 months earlier. Later, I will share with you how they moved from this regressive cycle and into the progressive cycle, creating a different future for themselves. Before we move into the progressive cycle, let's recap reptilian reactions. Please pause this video and write your answers in the workbook. Then resume the video and I'll give you the answers. So please go ahead and pause. Welcome back. So here's the answers. Reptilian reactions promote the regressive cycle. Number 2, Usually, the purpose of our reptilian reactions is at a deep level based on our own survival. We might be trying to win or be right, or maybe we're just trying to protect our self-esteem. Reptilian reactions express that a need of yours hasn't been met. Number 3, unfortunately, the result of these reactions is to disconnect ourselves from others and ultimately closing the door on achieving what you are hoping to accomplish. So, if you want a different life, you will need to change your reaction to others and the situation. First consciously, until it becomes an unconscious act on your part. Then, as I mentioned in the beginning of this course, it will become second nature, taking you from unconsciously incompetent to consciously competent. Someone once said, "You can't sow an apple seed and expect an avocado tree." The consequences of your life are sown in what you do and how you behave in your interactions with others, and your response will help to create either success or failure in your relations. If you want connection and healthy relationships, treat others with respect and keep every interaction safe. Violate respect and safety with others, and they will automatically self-protect and disconnect from you. This will negatively affect any results you're trying to achieve. You can't treat someone with disrespect and expect them to treat you with respect. It just doesn't work that way, for you tend to get what you dish out. So the choice is yours. Treat them with respect and hopefully get respect back. Treat them with disrespect and you can count on being disrespected. So now let's explore a different approach. One of connecting with others to get positive and effective results. Like we did earlier, we're going to watch a team do an exercise called the ancient art of pulling hands. This time they're pulling hands, not pushing hands. This is an exercise demonstrating that people can shift their natural tendency when others push on them physically if they begin with curiosity. Okay, so now we're going to do the ancient art of pulling hands. So rather than pushing on them, holding your ground, or giving in, now you're going to ask questions and you're going to redirect their energy as they're pushing on you. Okay? However you like to do that. So go ahead and partner up, put your hands together or your fists, however you do it. And this time, A is going to push on B, and B is going to redirect the flow as they're pushing on you, and see how that looks like. So ready on the mark. A, start pushing. Go ahead, start pushing. Pushing. Keep pushing. Yeah. Keep pushing. Yes, keep pushing, A. Keep pushing. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
So, look around. How many were smiling at that one? Okay, it's a lot more fun to be pulling information out of people than pushing on that. And you can see around there, everyone's smiling. How many of you started dancing?
I guess I was a little. I guess I was dancing. Yeah.
Waltz.
You're just redirecting. So I'm curious, what did I do that you didn't like? Yeah, you're just redirecting them by pulling hands. And it works in any situation. If you ask questions and you're curious, you are in control because the questions will start pulling information out of them. And they'll answer your question if you ask. Pretty cool. Please have a seat. Now that you've watched the ancient art of pulling hands, you can see that the response was quite different than the pushing hands exercise. Instead of returning like for like, or pushing back, giving in, or freezing in place, it's possible to redirect the energy you are receiving from others. They teach this in martial arts all the time, that when someone is charging you, redirect their energy by guiding them past you to gain control. In communication, this redirect is accomplished by simply asking questions to pull information out of others instead of pushing your information or your way onto them. Please go ahead and answer the questions here to contemplate how you can redirect the energy in your life when people are pushing on you. If someone asked you a question, what would your initial reaction be? Instead of returning like for like, it's more likely that you would put some effort into answering their question, or at least you might be surprised that they would be asking you a question in the first place. We'll get into what happens when we are asked a question in the next slide. Think about how using curiosity would help you when others push on you mentally or emotionally. By simply asking them a question, this could shift focus from getting deeper into the conflict to new understandings. Curiosity opens up possibilities where before there was struggle. Conscious curiosity is the opposite of reptilian reactions or violent communication. It is actually non-violent communication. Being consciously curious means that you remain open and curious, creating and maintaining safety and respect while building connection and elevating your results. I've already spent quite a bit of time on the power of questions, which is one of the most obvious and available ways to be curious. But let me share how questions can be focused. First, conscious curiosity involves inquiring about people's feelings and needs. This sends a message that you are taking their feelings and needs seriously, so they can relax and not sense the need to self-protect. Next, when asking questions, the purpose is to explore and discover new possibilities for the situation at hand. If there is a conflict, how can you get to the other side of it? If there is a challenge, what are possible solutions? There are many ways to solve a problem, and by asking quality questions, you're exploring what some solutions might be. And finally, using curiosity to meet your needs and the needs of others is crucial because we are all motivated by what's in it for me, or WIFM, W-I-I-F-M. Understanding what's important to others and acknowledging that their needs are valuable and sacred to them connects us at the deepest level. Further, interest and concern for others is empathy, and it's essential toward building connection. This is why this form of communication is called nonviolent communication. So let's go ahead and walk through the progressive cycle. Starting with conscious curiosity, when we ask quality questions, we create safety and respect with others, and this initiates the cascade effect of the progressive cycle. When safety and respect are in place, people are more willing to take risks, which encourages creativity and innovation. This leads to exceptional results, and the people can celebrate accordingly. This fosters ongoing growth and development and positive forward momentum. It's about connecting first, then thinking before you act. The equivalent to this when firing a weapon is ready, aim, shoot. Now I'm going to take the example I used before of the regressive cycle and the young company and show you how the outcome can be different when you know how to shift out of the regressive cycle and into the progressive cycle. I got together with the young executives of the company for a one-day retreat. I showed them the regressive cycle and explained reptilian reactions of fight, flight, and freeze. They acknowledged they were in the regressive cycle and that their go-to response was flight, and yet they didn't know how to pull themselves out of this downward spiral as a team. During the day, they learned how to ask quality questions and how to listen to understand instead of just listening to respond. 8 of the company's executives had traveled from all over the country and were now meeting face to face in a circle, asking quality questions, repeating back what they heard before responding. An entirely new level of understanding began to emerge. Using conscious curiosity rebuilt some respect and safety, and there was a willingness to share and be vulnerable. Tears were shed, they each had their own ahas, and they put together agreements that they would abide by moving forward. By the end of the day, they said they finally got to a point where they had hoped for to gain positive forward momentum as a team. They had shifted out of the regressive cycle and into the progressive cycle by being curious with each other and listening to understand instead of just listening to respond. Now, let's recap what we've learned about conscious curiosity. Please pause this video and write your answers in the workbook. When you're done, restart the video and I'll give you the answers. Welcome back. So let's go ahead and let me share some of these answers with you. Number 1, conscious curiosity promotes the progressive cycle because questions promote safety and respect, and when there's safety and respect, people are willing to risk, and there's a cascade effect of progressive development. Number 2, the purpose of conscious curiosity is to create a safe space for others to share with you in order to build connection. And anything along that lines you wrote down would be really good. Number 3, the results that conscious curiosity achieves ultimately is to achieve shared goals together or to discover the best way to interact with each other or achieve some sort of results together. Any answers you have along those lines will work. It's just to help you remember what the progressive cycle is and what puts it in motion. After going through this module, you can now see the implication of both cycles and the effect it has on your relationships and business results. When you feel disconnected from others and are in the regressive cycle, you will run the story, "It doesn't work for me," and you will self-protect. You're not curious about the needs of anyone involved because you are in self-protection mode and only focusing on your needs. The opposite is also true. When you feel connected to others and are in the progressive cycle, you will run the story, "Hey, this works for me." You're concerned about meeting not just your needs, but the needs of those involved, and that creates the progressive cycle because now people are wanting to interact with you because they're getting their needs met as well. So the choice is yours. Respond to others with reptilian reactions and you will put the regressive cycle in motion, creating more drama and conflict in your life. Or you can respond to others by asking a question with conscious curiosity, and you will put the progressive cycle in motion, creating connection and healthy relationships. Now that you know the two cycles, you have an opportunity to choose your cycle in any situation. When your reptilian reactions flare, the hair on the back of your neck bristles and your heart rate quickens, stop and take the curious ABC pause to use conscious curiosity to shift you into the progressive cycle. Secondly, before you push back on someone else, remember that the consequences of your life is sown in what you do and how you behave. Behave differently than ever before, and you have automatically put something new into the mix. The other person may actually say, "Wow, that was different. That's not the way you've responded before." Then you'll know you're off to creating a different relationship and results than ever before. Pulling yourself back from the brink of overreacting or freaking out is one part of the equation. Realizing that others are about to get upset or shut down is the topic of our next module, number 6, called What? By observing how others are behaving. Before moving on, refer to your personal challenge.